The MMA fortune teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller.
The teller checking in, coming off another profitable event. And not just any old ordinary profitable event. We're talking about a perfect 3 for 3 on the night. And not only was it another perfect event, 3 for 3 on the night, but it continues the streak of 4 events in a row without taking one loss. That is 4 events in a row with all winning bets taking place. So you know that translates to a lot of money coming in for the teller. Things are really good over here on this side. You guys are taking a look at what my clients get. You see the quick write-up, and of course, you know the 3 plays that were locked in back, I believe, Monday or Tuesday, which is usually around the time that I get my plays out to my clients, just so you guys have a heads up of how it works over here. But yeah, I was just ecstatic for this fight card, UFC 248. Leading up to it, I felt so extremely confident in the 3 plays that I had locked in. You guys heard me here last week. I was telling you guys it's going to be another profitable event. These 3 plays were just solid. And of course, my main play, Marco Madsen, you know, it was a play you don't see things translate like they did this past week, where this is a guy that was as high as minus 750. I was so extremely confident in him, but for whatever reason, the line completely plummeted leading up to the event. I didn't see why that was happening. I sat back. I was patient on it. I was able to grab him as low as minus 210, under minus 210 actually, which was just ridiculous. The line did go back up a little bit leading up to the fight. And for those of you guys that follow me on Instagram, if you saw the Instagram live video I did, a lot of you guys were asking for a free play. I gave you the Marco Madsen play. And some people said, hey, the line was high or whatnot. So I recommended parlay the fight with Rodolfo Vieira, which was not even something that I did because the Vieira line was high. But I did feel extremely confident in him too. That little parlay cashed. And then other than that, we went to the Beneil Dariush play. Beneil Dariush, this guy is such a skilled fighter. I would take him in that spot all day. Jakar Close is a tough guy, but his striking is not on the level of Dariush, nor is his grappling. And then to top it all off, of course, I had hit that Alex Cowboy Oliveira play, which it got a little awkward. You know, Max Griffin was commenting on my photos, and the dude seems like an extremely cool dude. I wish nothing but the best for him. But I had to capitalize in that spot because Alex Cowboy Oliveira is a true stud, and I knew he would be more skilled anywhere that this fight went, and would actually be the bigger fighter in there, which is a rare thing against a guy, in Max Griffin. So those were my 3 plays for the card. Other than that, this was pretty funny. So I did get a DM this past weekend from somebody that was currently using one of my competitors. They have a YouTube channel. I'm sure all you guys are familiar with them. I would say they're my main competitors out here. Their main play for this card, this guy told me, and I looked it up, you could see it as well. Their main play was Jinglang Li, the Leech, to defeat Neil Magny, which obviously was a loss. I just found that completely comical when you have such a lucrative card in front of you that would be your play. It just goes to show you there's not a lot of people doing it like the teller. I don't just, I'm not out here just bark and say I'm the best in the game without backing it up. I mean, these other guys are complete jokes. So make sure, for any of you guys, that are dabbling with other people, dabbling with some competitors, make sure you know what you're doing and you're looking into, who you're giving your money to, because that's a complete joke. In no way, shape, or form should Lee have been the pick on this card. Neil Magny, like I said, Neil Magny is a very skilled fighter, and the way that line was looking too, that was not a play that you would go in on. Other than that, how about the co-main event, Zhang and Young Jacek? In my opinion, probably the best women's mixed martial arts bouts that I've ever seen. I mean, that fight was amazing. I felt either woman could have taken that fight. I thought Joanna, if she would have got the nod, I would have had you would have heard no complaints from me. I get it though. Zhang was the champion. It was such a closely contested match. I kind of understand how Zhang got the nod. I did feel that Joanna probably did enough, but the way her head looked probably affected the judges as well. She really took a beating in there, but so did Zhang. Zhang did as well. So a hell of a co-main event, and then in the main event. You guys got to go check out my Instagram as soon as you hear this, because I just made a very funny meme that I just posted that I think really sums up the main event. What a lackluster main event. I think that was one of the most disappointing main events I've seen in a long time. It was very reminiscent to Anderson Silva versus Demian Maia. In my opinion, the blame was on both fighters. I felt that Yoel Romero, as I said, that's the reason why I didn't pick him. He has horrible fighter IQ. He did not use his wrestling. He didn't chain wrestle. He didn't really want to win that fight. He's in there messing around. And you guys that listened to my channel last week, you heard me say it. The guy is unreliable, and that's why you wouldn't see me have any money on him in a spot like that. I did feel he had the ability to win that fight, but he just does not have the fighter IQ. Israel Adesanya has been in a lot of very entertaining fights as of recently. That one will not be will not be one of those to add to his resume, because that was a very disappointing performance on his end. I understand he's a counter fighter, but at some point you got to engage as well. That's why Conor McGregor is the #1 fighter in mixed martial arts. He's the main dude out there because he constantly delivers. You'll never see a performance like that from him. I lost a little bit of respect for Israel as far as, wanting to see him fight inside the octagon. So that's how I felt about the main event. Oh, and lastly, before we move our way over to UFC Fight Night 170 taking place in Brasilia, Brazil, we definitely got to touch upon Sean O'Malley. After a long layoff, he stepped back in the octagon and looked amazing. This is a guy that we will definitely be keeping tabs on for future plays if the line is right. But Sean O'Malley, man, he is lightning quick. He's very reminiscent to Conor McGregor towards the beginning of his career. So I think the sky is the limit for that kid. And I'm super excited to see him get back in there. And at this point, I think it's time to move over to UFC Fight Night 170. And let's get into the first fight of the card. So we got Veronica Macedo, who it's always a pleasure to watch her perform inside the octagon, win or lose, taking on Bea Malecki, it's also a pleasure to watch her fight as well, win or lose. But on a serious note, Veronica Macedo, she's coming off a victory, and in my opinion, a very important and an impressive victory against Polyana Viana. She pulled off the armbar in the first round. And it was more than just showing that she has underrated BJJ skills. She just looked very tough in there. This is a chick that I really feel she's a very feisty, tough chick. She's not going to give up. So I did like to see that from her. And then her opponent, Bea Malecki, the Swedish fighter. She likes to go by Bad News Barbie. This girl, she's only 1-0 as far as her professional career goes. She did lose the exhibition bout, which in my opinion makes no difference. She lost the bout in the Ultimate Fighter show against Leah Letson. It was a unanimous decision loss for her. But this girl, she's a striker. She has striking skills, and I think the route that she wants to take in this fight is to keep the fight on the feet and try to outpoint Veronica, pull off the decision, maybe get the stoppage. Veronica Macedo, on the other hand, I think that she should try to make this a grappling affair. As I talked about, she has underrated BJJ skills, and I think the fight would be in her world if she can get it down there. I'll be rooting for Veronica Macedo. I don't think I'll have a play in this fight, at least up to now. But I'll be definitely watching. I'll definitely be watching this fight. We got a UFC newcomer and David Dvorak fighting out of the Czech Republic, and he's taking on Bruno Silva. Of course, Bruno Silva did make his UFC debut not too long ago, and he took a tough loss against a very tough fighter in Khalid Taha. I think we all know now that guy Taha is a complete bulldog. You won't be getting him at such great underdog odds. Like it was out there for us to grab last couple times he stepped into the octagon. I think you're going to start to see him step in as a true favorite, no matter who he's fighting, because that guy's striking is just absolutely nasty. But yeah, Bruno Silva took that loss, ended up getting submitted, but Taha really set that submission up with his nasty striking. And Bruno Silva, this is a guy, a typical Brazilian fighter, last name Silva, has good jiu-jitsu, striking's not bad as well, very well-rounded. Taking on this guy David Dvorak, who is on about a 15-fight win streak. This guy has been winning fights left and right, and doing it all types of ways. Looks good on tape. The level of competition isn't necessarily the best. There was a couple guys I noticed that were, it seems like it's a little bit of a padded record. He's fought at flyweight before as well. So, he's not the biggest fighter for the division. But, sometimes it's a good thing when they move up. He might be a little bit more filled, and he'll be able to perform better inside the octagon. I'm going to go with David Dvorak. I just think that this guy has more potential from what I've seen. It's definitely a close fight. I think the fight can go either way. David's going to have a 3-inch height advantage. And I think if he, stays on the outside, uses his striking, I think he could pull this victory off. But an extremely close fight, so be careful if you're betting this. We got another Silva fighting on the card, which would make sense since the card is taking place over in Brazil. Going to have a lot of Brazilian fighters on the card. We got Mayra Bueno Silva taking on Marina Moroz, the Iron Lady. Fighting she's fighting from the Ukraine nowadays. I believe she lives somewhere right around my area. I see her on Instagram over here in South Florida, training over at American Top Team, I believe. But she's always right around the way. Maybe I'll bump into her one day. She's only 28 years old. She's been putting some time inside the octagon for a little bit now. So I've been impressed with her at times. And then there's been some other times where it was very underwhelming, where she did not look like she's really on top of her game. But she does have good jiu-jitsu. I've seen her pull off some nice submissions. Her striking is not bad. As of recently, the only 2 losses she had was against Angela Hill and Carla Esparza, who are 2 very tough competitors. And then since then, she just had a victory over Sabina Mazo. Sabina Mazo, the Colombian fighter, is a very tough fighter who, you guys heard me rave about. I think that she has a lot of potential. So that was a big win for Marina Moroz. She's taken out girls like Joanne Calderwood, pulled off that nasty armbar on Joanne Calderwood back in 2015. But that's an accolade for her. Calderwood is no joke. She took out Danielle Taylor. She's just a very well-rounded fighter. And then her opponent, the Brazilian fighter, she's undefeated, of course, 6-0. A lot of submissions. She's definitely a BJJ specialist. I think if she wins this fight, she's going to be using her grappling and her submission skills. She's coming off a very solid win against Jillian Robertson, who's no slouch in regards to BJJ in her own right. And then before that, of course, she had the impressive victory on Dana White's Contender Series, where she had the ninja choke on the show. So I mean, she's a stud too. So this is a tough fight as well. I've been back and forth on this fight. I almost feel like I want to go with the dog and Marina Moroz, but then, the more I watch tape on Silva, I see that she's a very skilled fighter as well. So it's been tough, but I think I'm going to go with the dog here. I'm going to take Marina Moroz. I liked what I've seen from her as of recently, and I think she has the potential to take this fight even over in Brazil. We got the fun-size Demian Maia and Yahya taking on Enrique Barzola, the split decision king. El Fuerte, the Peruvian fighter, has an excellent gas tank, a very well-rounded fighter. He's putting a lot of time in over at American Kickboxing Academy. The dude is a stud. I wouldn't put him on that top-tier level, but he's a solid fighter. This guy's came through at certain times, and Yahya, as I said, he's the miniature version of Demian Maia. This guy is a true BJJ grappler, a true specialist. I've been watching him from way back over in WEC, the old WEC days. This guy was, I'm telling you, he was a little miniature version of Demian Maia. He went out there and he subbed everybody. So, I still think to this day he can easily go out there and sub anybody, of course, So if this fight hits the mat, Barzola definitely has to watch out, watch his neck, watch his arm, especially if Yahya is able to take his back. He could seal off a round like that as well. But Enrique Barzola is extremely well-rounded, as I said, has very good grappling. Striking is not bad either. He puts on a pace on his opponents. And the more I looked into this fight and I watched on tape, I really felt like this kind of... it was tailor-made for Barzola. I think he can keep this fight on the feet. He has good footwork, and as long as he doesn't go to the mat with Yahya, I think that he could really run away with this fight. So that's why, I'm taking Barzola to win this fight. We got an excellent matchup here, and Zaleski dos Santos taking on the Russian fighter Alexey Kunchenko. He's one of those true Russian fighters, not fighting out of Dagestan, but more of one of those Peter Yan type of fighters, or those Alexander Shlemenko type of fighters. This is a guy that's put a lot of time in over at Tiger Muay Thai. His striking's nasty. One thing I will say about him, he does not put the greatest output out in his fights. He's very patient, has excellent takedown defense. This isn't a guy that you're going to go out and just take down. So you won't see Zaleski, doing what he did to Curtis Millender. He won't be doing that against Kunchenko. Kunchenko will stuff those takedowns. The thing is, I kind of worry about, as I said, Kunchenko's output. I feel like Zaleski will put a little bit more volume out, but Kunchenko has power in his hands, and he's coming off a tough loss against Gilbert Burns. And, that was his first professional loss. I do believe that's going to light a fire under his ass. And I think he's going to be out there in Brazil looking to take somebody's head off, which is why I'm going to go with the underdog here. I'm going to take Alexey Kunchenko. I think this guy has some real skills to work with, in regards to his grappling, his striking. Just has to get a little bit more output with his striking, and he can beat a lot of fighters. That Gilbert Burns fight, he should have won that fight. He looked very good in the third round. He did win that third round, but he lost the first two. And Zaleski is a very skilled striker, very good BJJ practitioner. He's coming off a tough loss as well against the Leech. We talked about him earlier. The Leech, he's a good fighter, but that was a fight that I think that he would love to have back. He got finished in the third round. I think if he game planned a little bit better, that's a fight that he could have took. But, now it's on to the next, and he has a very tough fighter in front of him, and Alexey Kunchenko. And, yeah, I got the underdog Alexey Kunchenko to win by decision. We got another women's bout taking place in the card, and a really solid fight. We got Randa Markos taking on Amanda Ribas. Of course, Randa Markos, she's been around the way for a while now, an extremely tough Canadian chick. Her wrestling's good. She's shown that her striking has grown a lot throughout her career. Really looked good against Claudia Gadelha in that fight that they had. And she's just really a tough chick, and she could spoil the party on anybody. And, speaking of spoiling the party, I was there for Amanda Ribas, her last fight that took place in Tampa, where she defeated Mackenzie Dern. That entire crowd was there for Mackenzie Dern, and Ribas just came in and absolutely styled on Mackenzie Dern. I'm really high on Amanda Ribas. I think her jiu-jitsu is good. Her striking is very good, especially her striking. She does have a very questionable loss, though, against Poliana Viana, where she got finished in the first round. So you do have to be worried about her taking those types of losses, because when something like that happens, it could definitely happen again. And Randa Markos is going to be throwing bombs at her head. You better believe that. So if her head movement's not on point and she takes a nasty shot, she could definitely be finished. But skill for skill, I got to go with Ribas. I think that she avoids the big shot. I think that her game's really coming around, coming off of a nice three-win streak and two really nice wins against Emily Whitmire and Mackenzie Dern. And I think that she's going to string off another victory here against Randa Markos. Moving over to the flyweight division. The flyweight division lives on. We got Brandon Moreno taking out Jussier Formiga. Of course, Formiga, he's been a staple of the flyweight division. He was the true flyweight king way before the division was even created inside the UFC. I used to follow him way before the division started up inside the octagon. He was fighting all over the globe. Different parts of the world where that division was around. And the dude is an absolute stud in regards to his BJJ. Striking has evolved over his career, but his jiu-jitsu is really his bread and butter. We saw what he did against Pettis, little Sergio Pettis. He controlled him that entire fight. That was a big win for him. He defeated Davison Figueiredo, who's on fire right now. Would have been the flyweight champion if he didn't miss weight. But he's beat good guys, man. Sasaki, Ben Nguyen, Dustin Ortiz, Wilson Hayes, Zach Makovsky, Scott Jorgensen, Chris Carriaso. These are guys, that have been around the block. So, Formiga is absolutely no joke. If you look at the only guys that have defeated him, it's all the cream of the crop in the division. John Dodson back in the day, Joseph Benavidez twice, Ray Borg, Henry Cejudo. He lost to Ian McCall a long time ago, too, and that's when Ian McCall was also considered to be arguably the best flyweight. This was back before, Demetrius Johnson was in the division. These two guys were known as the best flyweights in the world. For those of you guys that don't remember that, of course, Demetrius Johnson ended up dropping down in weight, left the bantamweight division, and became pretty much the best flyweight ever. Yeah, he is, for sure. The best flyweight that's ever competed inside the octagon. So, yeah, Formiga is absolutely no joke. Brandon Moreno has very underrated jiu-jitsu as well. Or maybe not underrated. Maybe, a lot of people actually, they know about his jiu-jitsu. It's good. He has good jiu-jitsu. His striking is chaotic. It's sporadic. He can sleep you. If you're sleeping on him, he'll catch you with something. He'll put you out. He's a stud too. He's coming off a big win against Kai Kara France. Not a lot of people beat France. France has continuously beat everybody as of recently. Not Moreno, though. Moreno, he took that victory. And if you look at the guys that beat him as of recently, some really tough opponents too. Sergio Pettis, Alexandra Pontejo, who's a very tough fighter as well, but definitely has Moreno's number. He's lost to him twice. But Moreno's taking out guys like Dustin Ortiz, Ryan Benoit, Louis Smoka. He can get it done for sure. So, when I'm going to pick one of these guys, I'm definitely going to go with Jussier Formiga. Formiga, as I went on a rant here a little bit ago, the dude is just an absolute stud. And I'm going to take Formiga against almost everybody in the weight class. There's very few guys that I'm not going to pick him over in the weight class. The guy is an absolute professional, and I expect him to get the job done over in Brazil. He'll have the crowd going for him. The judges should be on his side, of course. You know how that goes. And it's his fight to win. Francisco Trinaldo taking on the Bull and John Makdessi. This was a guy that had once had a lot of hype behind him, Makdessi. You remember when he was hitting people with spinning back fists, and he looked like he had a little something going for himself. And, training out of one of the best camps back in the day, TriStar, which, of course, they did fall off, as of recently, at least it seems like. But still, Faraz Sahabi, one of the best coaches that's ever done it. Makdessi's put in time now, I think, with Duke Rufus. He's been jumping around a little bit. And, he is coming off 3 victories in a row. So, even though they were against opponents like Abel Trujillo and Ross Pearson and Jesus Pinedo, maybe not the most reputable opponents, because before that he was losing to guys like Lando Venata, Yancy Maderos, Cowboy Cerrone, and he even lost to Alan Patrick. So, he's not going to be the type of fighter that takes those big names out, at least in my opinion. Francisco Trinaldo, he's pretty close to one of those big names, in my opinion. The only problem with him is he's up there in age. If Trinaldo was in his prime, maybe say 3 years ago or whatnot, I would definitely be on Trinaldo 100%. Not to say that I'm not on him here as well, but I would definitely be on top of him. But he's 41 years old, creeping up on 42. And he really doesn't look like he's missing a beat, I guess. He just took out Bobby Green, won that unanimous decision. Before that, he lost to Alexander Hernandez. That was a robbery. He won that fight. You guys remember that fight. Come on, think back. He was absolutely robbed in that fight. And if my memory suits me right, that event actually took place. No, it didn't. I thought it took place in Brazil, but it didn't. It was in Texas, San Antonio, Texas. But that was a robbery. So, he should have had that victory. He should be on a 3-fight winning streak right now. And then other than that, the only guys that even beat him recently was James Vick and Kevin Lee. The point I'm making is Trinaldo is the real deal. He's a tough striker. His jiu-jitsu is good. He could hold his own on the mat. He'll stuff your takedowns all day. And, his kickboxing's good. He carries power. He definitely tends to go to decision a lot. He's the type of fighter that's going to win a decision. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I think he pulls off the decision against John Makdessi. John Makdessi he's going to be on the short end of the stick in regards to his reach. Trinaldo can definitely use his reach advantage, to help him out in this fight. It's funny, John Makdessi kind of reminds me of Artem Lobov in a way. Kind of has that kind of build. He looks like he has short arms, but his arms aren't actually as short as they look. I don't really know exactly how that all works, but you guys know what I'm talking about. He kind of looks like Artem Lobov in there. So we'll see how this fight takes place. I got Francisco Trinaldo to pull off the decision. I am unquestionably looking forward to this fight more than any other fight on the card. Johnny Walker taking on Nikita Krylov. You guys know the deal with Johnny Walker. This guy had so much hype. He could have been fighting for the belt right now if he would have took out Corey Anderson in that fight. But I think he got a little overzealous in there. a little reckless, and he got caught, at the hands by Corey Anderson. And I think that's a fight, if he runs it back, if he was more patient, he could definitely take that fight in the rematch. I would like to see that fight eventually down the line get set back up, because Corey Anderson caught him coming in. Once he was wobbled, he was out on his feet, and Corey Anderson was really able to capitalize on that, and he kind of looked like a beast in there, because you never see Corey Anderson look like that. That guy's always doing that pitter-patter, grappling type of fight. I don't know. I'm not that high on Corey Anderson. I think that he was overrated. But nevertheless, he did take out Johnny Walker. He did derail the hype train, at least temporarily. But now Johnny Walker has a chance to get a big victory in his home country against Nikita Krylov. Nikita Krylov, if you guys aren't familiar with him, this guy is another giant fighter in the light heavyweight division that's very fluid on his feet. He's unpredictable on his feet. And this is a perfect stylistic matchup, these guys. Somebody's going to get knocked out. I'm telling you guys right now, I definitely see somebody getting knocked out in this fight. Their striking, both of these guys' striking is just spectacular to watch, and they pull off unpredictable things constantly. So if one of these guys gets tagged, they're just too big. Someone's going to get slept. Nikita Krylov had a stint back in the UFC a long time ago when he was a young buck. He left, was fighting over in Russia for a little bit, and then he made his way back over to the octagon, which I was very excited for. He's taking guys out like Emmanuel Newton. That was over in Russia. Emmanuel Newton's a very good fighter. For those of you that don't know about him, he was the Bellator champion for a while. He took out Ovin St. Preux in the second stint over here in the UFC. He is coming off a loss to Glover Teixeira. That was a fight that was very closely contested. It could have gone either way. Very close fight. And this guy's just a real deal. I would like to see him definitely work on his grappling. He has some holes in regards to his grappling, that's for sure. But his striking is it's on a different level than a lot of these guys, man. Very, very fluid. So, yeah, like I said, I think that somebody's going to get knocked out here. I'm not going to tell you Johnny Walker's going to go out there and pull off the spectacular win again, because he can easily get caught himself. He's coming off a tough knockout, as I talked about, in regards to the Corey Anderson fight. That chin was tested. Krylov can test it again and put him out. But, of course, Johnny Walker can put anybody out himself, so don't be surprised if he gets the knockout. If I'm forced to pick somebody in a fight like this, I'm going to go with Johnny Walker. The fight's taking place in Brazil. I think he's going to be motivated coming off the loss, and I think this guy is truly a special fighter. But this is a fight, I'm telling you right now, it's maybe the value is on Nikita Krylov, because anybody can win this fight. And, maybe a good bet to look into is a prop bet that this fight does not complete the distance. Check that line out too. So, but this will be the most exciting fight on the card, in my opinion. Renato Moicano making his return to the octagon in his native country, taking on Damir Hasnovic, a guy that once had a lot of hype behind him, but since lost a lot of that hype after really just dropping the ball against Christos Giagos. He was a heavy favorite in that fight. I'll tell you right here, I thought he was going to dominate that fight, and he completely dropped the ball. And Giagos is a tough customer, but not a lot of people are super high on him. And, he absolutely controlled Damir in that fight. He really did whatever he wanted to. Damir looked like he gassed out in that fight. And before that, he was looking spectacular against guys like Marco Polo Reyes and Nick Hein. But maybe that hype job was a little bit the product of the competition that he was fighting inside the octagon. Renato Moicano, he's coming off some tough losses, 2 tough losses in a row. One against the Korean Zombie and the other against Jose Aldo, 2 of the best featherweights to ever do it. So maybe don't look too much into that, because I'm telling you, Moicano is a true stud. You saw what he did against Cub Swanson, took out Calvin Kattar too, who's one of the top fighters in the division. And then he lost against Brian Ortega. That was a fight he was absolutely dominating before making one little mistake and getting subbed in the 3rd round with only 2 minutes left to go in the fight. Moicano is a very skilled fighter. He has a giant frame for the weight class. He can really give guys some problems in there. And this is his fight all day. I truly believe that. As long as he doesn't get hit with a shot where he gets wobbled or put out, it could happen in any fight. If that doesn't happen, he's going to outclass him in every regards in this fight. He can work him with the BJJ, he can work him with the striking, he could do whatever he wants. He'll have the crowd behind him. If it goes to decision, it's going to be an easy decision for him. So this is Moicano's fight. The line is high, but there's things you could do with that to make some money. But Moicano is a true stud. I think he gets the train back on the tracks here. We hit the co-main event of the evening, and we have quite possibly the greatest grappler to ever bless the octagon in Demian Maia. I feel like he really solidified that in his last fight against Ben Askren, and just looked amazing in that fight. And now he's taking on a very, very tough grappler, a tough, complete fighter, really, Gilbert Burns, but an excellent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner as well. So Demian Maia, if he gets the sub here, it's just another accolade on his resume to just really show everybody why he is the best grappler to ever bless the octagon, as I said. Demian Maia, he's up there in age, that's for sure. He's, at this point in time, he's 42 years old. But, with his type of fighting style, I don't think that's going to play into effect for some time. I think he's going to still hold his own and still pull off a lot of victories. When you're up there in age and your game plan to win these fights is to get your opponent down to the ground and just use that old man strength and just completely just decapitate them, or just rip their limbs off and just smother them or whatever you want to do. This guy can still do that. Now, this stylistic matchup's tough for him, though, because Gilbert Burns is a guy, like I said, he's a great jiu-jitsu practitioner, a great grappler as well. He has good footwork. So I think he could hold his own in regards to grappling with Maia, maybe to avoid that submission. Maybe not, though, because maybe Maia is just on a whole nother level than any of these guys. But, maybe, like I was saying, maybe Burns could avoid that submission. And then I think as far as the striking goes, Burns is just on a whole nother wavelength. His striking's nasty. And I hate to say it, but the way I see this fight going is Burns using his footwork to avoid that submission. Even using his grappling skills to avoid that sub. If Maia grabs onto him for a little bit, Maia will probably start to gas out. And I think Burns could really just start to tee off on Maia and have that, hand Maia that typical Maia loss where the guy's stuffing his takedowns and then just working him on the feet. That's what I see happening here. All right, we made it to the main event of the card. We got Kevin Lee taking on Charles Oliveira. I think this is an excellent matchup here. I think that Charles Oliveira, after he pulls off this victory, is really going to get the credit he finally deserves. He's going to push for a title shot. This guy is the all-time leader in submissions inside the UFC. This is a guy that I was watching over a decade ago inside of the octagon. That is crazy to say. We literally watched this guy grow up inside the octagon. I remember back in 2010, back when I was at FSU in college, I was a young buck, and I was watching this guy pull off the submission against Efrain Escudero, who back then Escudero, had all the hype because he won the Ultimate Fighter. But that guy had nothing on Charles Oliveira. At the time, Oliveira was undefeated. He won his UFC debut against Darren Elkins where he pulled off the armbar. This guy he showed to be a true stud. He did have that setback, though, against Jim Miller. Shows you how crafty Jim Miller is. He pulled off that submission, too, that knee bar in the first round way back then in 2010. But since then, Charles Oliveira has just beat the who's who and just subbed guy after guy. Of course, you don't get records with your submissions unless you're doing work in there. So really, just look at this. Guillotine choke, rear naked choke, anaconda choke, right cross into ground and pound. This guy right overhand to an uppercut. These are the descriptions of all of his victories, and those were in a row. That's dating back to 2018. Those were in a row. I didn't just put those together. That's what he's been doing against guys like Clay Guida, Christos Giagos, Jim Miller in the rematch, David Tamor, Nick Lentz, Jared Gordon. This guy is an absolute stud. The guys that have given him trouble in the past, were top of the line type of fighters. Frankie Edgar back in the day, Cub Swanson back in the day, Cerrone. I spoke of the Jim Miller loss the first time around, but Oliveira was just a kid, and Jim Miller was in his prime, and he was a crafty fighter. Max Holloway, Anthony Pettis, Ricardo Lamas, and Paul Felder. Those are all true studs of the game. But the thing is, since that last loss to Paul Felder, I really think he's cleaned up his game a little bit. He's became more of a man. He's filled into his body. He's 30 years old now. He just strung off 6 victories in a row. And now he's taking on Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee is a guy who's a tough wrestler. The striking's coming around too. You saw him get a nasty head kick against Gregor Gillespie, who a lot of people were high on. But Gregor Gillespie doesn't have the same type of striking as Oliveira. I think that was one of Gillespie's major holes in his game, and he didn't use his wrestling, and he got knocked out. So he paid for his mistake. Oliveira is not going to be there for that type of knockout. His Muay Thai is very fluid. His striking's nasty. I mean, you've seen he's been hurting people on the feet as well. And I think this is Charles Oliveira's fight to win. It's taking place in Brazil. And, I'm taking the underdog Charles Oliveira. So, for some of you guys that say I just stick with favorites, this and that, that's all horseshit. And you see it once again, like a card like this. I have so many underdogs in this card. And all it's about is picking the fighter who you truly believe is going to win the fight. I'm not here to please you guys and just pick certain fighters because you guys want me to. I study the tape and I pick who I believe is going to win the fight. And that's why I'm the best in the game at what I do. And especially in regards to who I pick to win my bets. There's nobody on planet Earth better than me at doing what I do. So shout out to everybody that's jumped on board with me, that signed up to my picks. I will be announcing my picks by tomorrow. I've been cramming fight tape all day. I'm finalizing some stuff. And you guys will all be getting that message here soon. And that's what the teller has going on over here. For those of you guys that have not reached out to me, I don't know what you're waiting on. It's been 4 events in a row. I've been running the table. I feel extremely confident about the plays I'm targeting here. I'm going to make it another profitable event. What are you guys hesitating on? I'll work with you on the price. I will make you your money. The first event that you sign up to me for, you're going to make more than your money back. It's a no-brainer. I also offer a full refund if I don't do that. That's how confident I am. You guys have nothing to lose. Reach out to me through Instagram, DM me, comment below if you don't have Instagram. We'll figure something else out. And on that note, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button as well. Helps with the algorithms. Help your boy out. Let's help get this channel out, man. Let's work as a team. And, on that note, MMA for signing out.
The teller.